Hello everyone, I'm Urologist Ömür Erdem Akkaya. Today was a customized video that can be a bit boring. Our topic is sex hormone-binding globulin, an important topic related to testosterone. As is well known, prescription and use of testosterone has increased in the last 10 to 15 years. And why? Because studies have shown that all-cause mortality and cardiovascular disease increase in men with testosterone deficiency, and that these also improve and quality of life increases in patients on testosterone replacement therapy. With some influence from social media, we can say that the use of testosterone is widespread throughout the world. So how can we use our own natural testosterone in a healthier and more efficient way? The first topic we encounter is sex hormone-binding globulin. This is because sex hormone-binding globulin binds free testosterone, which is most of the active testosterone that functions when it enters cells. Sex hormone-binding globulin causes testosterone to remain 47% to 57% inactive. This rate varies from person to person. If necessary, sex hormone-binding globulin can let go of the hormone it binds to in the blood when free testosterone decreases. Exactly what sex hormone-binding globulin does in cells is currently unknown. Cells have its receptors. It goes and does something in the cells, but it is not known what it does. Sex hormone-binding globulin can actually be used as a parameter as well. What parameter is that? Sex hormone-binding globulin starts to decrease when the lipid profile deteriorates, especially when the triglycerides in the blood increase, when insulin resistance starts to develop, when the person starts to gain weight, when the person's metabolic balance starts to deteriorate. The lower it is, the unhealthier we are, the higher it is, the healthier we are. And just this is one of the most important parameters in patients with cholesterol and insulin resistance. Apart from this, there are macro reasons that increase sex hormone-binding globulin. Acromegaly, hyperthyroidism, and liver-related cirrhotic diseases have also been shown to increase sex hormone-binding globulin. Eating disorders such as anorexia nervosa, emaciation, have been found to increase sex hormone-binding globulin. However, SHBG was found to rise again in patients who underwent bariatric surgery, that is, when they became thinner and healthier. If we look at the studies, what actually increases sex hormone-binding globulin? An increase in sex hormone-binding globulin was seen primarily when sugar structures from carbohydrates that we call monosaccharides, such as glucose and fructose, enter the body and begin to form fatty acids in the liver, primarily palmitic acid, which is called lipogenesis. Sex hormone-binding globulin has been found to decrease on a high-carbohydrate diet, so free testosterone may increase, but if the patient gains excessive weight and his metabolism is impaired, total testosterone also decreases. Sex hormone-binding globulin has been found to be increased on vegetarian diets such as a ketogenic diet and a high-protein diet. There is an interesting study that was done in Italy. In this study, regions using olive oil and sunflower oil were compared. It was a large-scale study. It was found that sex hormone-binding globulin is higher in the region that uses olive oil. As you know, people in the Mediterranean region are the longest living population in the world. This is also one of the good examples of the Mediterranean diet. However, there are also variations and genetic mutations. Some mutations of sex hormone-binding globulin, which usually occur in about 5 to 10% of the population, have been found to cause sex hormone-binding globulin to be high in these people. If we look at polyphenol, for example, resveratrol derived from grapes, a product sold as OTC group, has been found to increase sex hormone-binding globulin. So if you take resveratrol, free testosterone may go down. But let me tell you from my own experience, resveratrol is an aromatase inhibitor. It's a polyphenol. Resveratrol is supposed to be a very important flavonoid. It is supposed to increase total testosterone and decrease dihydrotestosterone, but I could not find any studies on the internet about it. Both from my own experience and anecdotally, green tea in particular increases sex hormone-binding globulin. A couple of patients have contacted me about this. When I questioned the patient thoroughly, I learned that he consumed a lot of green tea and unfortunately his free testosterone levels were low. That being said, there are phytoestrogens, friends. What is a phytoestrogen? Phytoestrogens are estrogenic substances that we absorb through the foods we eat and drink. They are not estrogens directly, but when they enter the blood, they bind to estrogen receptors and exhibit estrogenic functions. We absorb them not only through food and drink, but also through many other substances we ingest throughout the day. These can increase estrogen and trigger the production of sex hormone-binding globulin. And while sex hormone-binding globulin holds the increased estrogen, it also inactivates free testosterone by holding the free testosterone. Therefore, when the patient comes to us for sexual reluctance and erectile dysfunction, both free testosterone and estrogen should be checked. When we start a clomiphene treatment, after a period of time, total testosterone initially rises and the patient may benefit, but then it can all be over very quickly. This is because sex hormone-binding globulin can intervene and immediately reduce the free testosterone by buffering it. About anabolics, testosterone itself and dihydrotestosterone-based anabolic steroids like Proviron and Vistral greatly reduce sex hormone-binding globulin and increase free testosterone. Of course, this is an old strategy of the anabolic steroid cycle that everyone knows. Old molecules used to make them more effective by removing the active ingredient from sex hormone-binding globulin. That being said, sex hormone-binding globulin is not a bad thing. In fact, its increase shows that the body is healthier. As I said, it was generally found that sex hormone-binding globulin decreases with the intake of carbohydrates and fructose, which is the sugar from eating fruits, according to certain clear information, friends. Thank you very much for listening. With kind regards.